In a recent episode, we talked about how to divide up our time to maintain consistency without burnout. But you might be asking yourself whether or not you are actually spending your time on what matters most. Do you know what matters most to you in this season of life? Because it does change. So, if you've never sat down to really think this through and determine your personal priorities, this is a great time to do that. We can often spend so much time doing that we neglect taking time to think about whether or not this is actually something that we should be doing. So, in this episode, we're going to walk through a simple exercise to help you understand your personal priorities in this season of life so that you can decide how you want to be prioritizing your time from here on out.
Are you ready to stop the chaos, the stress, the overwhelm that's filling your life? I'm Renee Matt, and together you and I are going to build simple routines that are going to change your life. When you put these habits into practice, you're going to be able to organize your life in a way where you can be there for your family, pay off your debt, save money, your house can stay organized, you don't have to stress about what's for dinner, and you still get time for yourself. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to the Routine Advantage Podcast.
If you have never taken time to sit down and figure out your personal priorities, I think you're going to really enjoy this episode because you're going to find out so much about yourself and your heart posture of how you are feeling and where you're spending your time. When we are feeling overwhelmed, a lot of times we are just trying to keep up with everything around us. And we're not really focusing directly on the time that we are spending in the areas that matter most to us. And this is in many different categories, and I'll explain that in a little bit here. But really, what we want to be doing is we want to be knowing that we're focusing our time on what matters because that is what is going to make us feel more fulfilled, even when we're busy. So, you could have an incredibly busy schedule, but knowing that you are prioritizing what is most important to you is going to keep you fulfilled and energized and moving forward because you're doing it for a purpose. Where if you are just keeping incredibly busy because you're just trying to keep up with everything and you're just trying to respond to things without actually taking the time to do this, you might be spending your time on things that really don't matter to you and don't necessarily even need to be done. You've just never stopped long enough to realize that. So, this is a time where you can go through and you can filter. Now, can we like orchestrate our life to be exactly what we want and never do anything we don't want? No, that's not realistic because there are going to be times where we have to do things even when we don't enjoy them. But that doesn't mean that we need to neglect the things that we do enjoy and that are important. We just have to construct our days to actually craft time and create time for those things that matter so that we can feel more fulfilled. Now, like you've probably heard the saying of you can't pour from an empty cup, and that's what this is. Every time we can spend time doing what matters to us, we feel a little bit more fulfilled and it's filling that cup even further. And when it's full, we are pouring out and we can share with others. But every time we skip what is important, it just drains our cup a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And pretty soon you feel like you are just running dry because you haven't done anything that matters to you. And it's harder to help pour into others when you're feeling dry yourself. So I hope that makes sense. I'm not really good with analogies, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to say here. So what we really want to do is just we want to have a time to break down our personal priorities so that we can kind of have a big picture end in mind. We want to know what we are trying to achieve, and then we need to know how to break it down into smaller steps so that we can actually get to where we're wanting to go. But until we actually take this time to sit down and figure out those priorities, we don't know the end that we are trying to get to. So, this is where we're going to choose our personal priorities by setting simple plans plans to reach your goals. So, the first thing I want you to do is to grab a pen and paper because you're probably going to want to write some things down here. You can do it if you're driving or if you don't have the ability to sit down and write this. You can definitely do it while you are just listening and kind of mentally take note. But I would encourage you to come back to this episode later and go back through when you can actually have the ability to write it down because that is going to make so much of a difference for you in how you focus because there is a lot to kind of break down and to understand why it is important to you as well. So, the first thing we need to do is to help understand your priorities and then create that plan to begin achieving them. So, I want you to take your paper and I want you to number it number 1 through 8 and give it some space between because you're kind of going to do some writing in between there. So, give yourself some space between. You could even use the back of your paper, do maybe 4 on the front and 4 on the back. And then once you do that, you're going to move to number 2 and you are going to write down your categories. So we're going to fill in each of these numbers. So right next to each of the numbers, I want you to write one of these categories. So you'll start with number 1 is relationships. Number 2 is spiritual life. Number 3 is health and physical activity. Number 4 is home. Number 5 is finances. And number 6 is personal. And then the last two, 7 and 8, I want you to think of your own categories that are important to you. So this could be anything that is not related in these other 6 that I just mentioned, but it could be something that is a category that you want to focus on. So it could be your career, it could be your marriage, it could be your parenthood, it could be anything that really makes a difference. Now, relationships, you might be thinking, well, that's already covered in for marriage and parenthood, but it might not. You might look at it a little bit differently. So it really just depends on what you want to focus on. Your relationships could mean, your siblings or your friends' relationships in general, but then marriage is a little bit more focused, or parenthood is a little bit more focused. So it just depends on what you want to do. But the seventh and eighth categories are yours to have some free reign over. And then we're going to move to number 3 once you have those written in. And you're going to go back and you're going to start back at number 1 for relationships. And you're going to rate each of these categories on a scale of 1 to 5 on how you feel about this category. So with this scale, a number 1 would be low satisfaction, and a number 5 would be, fully satisfied. Like you're happy about where you're at in this particular category. So I just want you to go through, and you don't have to do anything in particular. You just kind of want to go gut feeling, like how are you really feeling in this area of your life, and go through and rate each of these categories on a scale of 1 to 5. And then number 4, we're going to go back to each again. And this is why we left space between them. And you're going to do 3 things. You're first going to write down why you rated it the way you did. You're going to give yourself an explanation of why you felt that you needed to give that category that particular rating. And then you are going to write down one thing that you would like to do to help either improve your rating or maintain your rating. Because in some situations, you might be like, I'm rating this a 3 or a 4 or even a 5, and whatever you rated it, you might be really satisfied with that rating for this season of life. So it's like, okay, I know that I am maintaining a pretty good level here. It could be better for sure, but it could also be worse, and I'm happy with where I'm at in this season, and I just want to maintain that satisfaction and keep doing what I'm doing in this area, and I'll make changes later. So that is something that you could definitely do, but you want to make sure that you are writing down what it is that you are wanting to do to maintain that rating. So if you have been doing something specific, write down that you want to keep doing that. If you haven't been doing something that you really want to begin doing, that's when you would write that down. And then the third thing that you're going to write down here is to write down what you can commit to in order for your goal that you just created to be achievable, whether it is a daily commitment, a weekly, monthly, annual, it doesn't matter, but write down what you can commit to help you or achieve that goal of improving or maintaining that rating. So I want to give you some examples here because this might sound like it is really confusing if you are walking through the steps and you've never done this before. So I just want to give you kind of some examples to relate to. So number one is relationships. So let's say you rated it a 3 out of 5. And your explanation of why might be that you feel that you have a good flow in most of your relationships with your family and your friends, but you want more connection with your spouse because you feel like something big is missing there. So, one thing to improve or maintain might be to improve by prioritizing time to connect on a deeper level. You want to have more fun. You want to have more flirtiness. You want to kind of date your partner again. You want to have that intimacy that you feel like you may have lost. So, what you could commit to is to schedule one date that is a non negotiable, that you go out once a month to experience something new and have no phones with you. So, you might be going to a restaurant, you might be going and doing an activity you've never tried before, you might be doing something that the other one chooses and take turns with what the other one is choosing to do and just date your spouse again. So that might be something that you can commit to. And a date once a month is an easy thing to be able to commit to. And then in this season, you can commit to that and then take some time, do this for a full quarter, do that for 3 months, and then see if you want to adjust that goal and go through these priorities again. You can do this as often as you want. So, another example might be in your finances category. Maybe you rated this a 2 out of 5. So your explanation of why might be that you have your income where you feel comfortable, but you want to be more financially stable with how you distribute your funds. So you might want to get a budget set up. You might want to start putting, 15% into retirement investments. You want to build that 6-month emergency fund. You want to build a sinking fund to do some remodeling in your house. You've got a lot of goals because there's a lot of things you know that you can be doing with your finances that you just haven't put into place yet. So even though you enjoy your income, you're rating it a 2 because there's a lot of things you still feel like are missing. So one thing that you can do to improve or maintain, let's say this is improving as well. So this is to build your base budget with a goal to save 10% of your income each month. Now, is this going and doing all of your goals at once? It's not because that could feel more overwhelming. So, what you could commit to first is building your base budget and getting set with your goal and creating a goal to put 10% of your income aside into savings and actually building your base budget to support that. So, you can start with that, putting 10% of your money aside. And then you can get used to this and start going and building into the next part of your goal. So maybe the first goal is to do this, get consistent with this, and then when you review your priorities again, then you can decide another thing. Where it's like, okay, now we're going to put 15% into our retirement and do that as an auto withdrawal, and we don't have to worry about it, but we're going to continue saving our 10% and then putting that aside for your 6-month emergency fund until that is fully funded. So it just depends on what you want to do, but start small so that it's not so overwhelming. Start with one first step to help you get to your ultimate goal of where you want to be. Another example, and this is the final example, so I won't bore you too much here. But your home might be the next one, and maybe you rated this a 4 out of 5. And an explanation of why is that you feel like you can maintain a tidy home pretty well, but you just feel like you have too much stuff in your home that it sometimes feels overwhelming to manage. So, one thing to improve or maintain this is maybe maintain is to continue your daily 7 home routine to keep your home tidy, but you're also wanting to improve slightly by decluttering each room in your home. So, an example of something that you can commit to in this situation would be that you want to make sure you are prioritizing declutter time for 20 minutes each week. You just want to make sure that for 20 minutes you are decluttering. So, you could do the declutter session where you are grabbing a box or a bag and you are just going and tornadoing through your home, grabbing anything you can possibly see that you don't need anymore and getting it into the bag or the box for either trash or donation or whatever you're doing. Or you can say, okay, 20 minutes I am going to spend on this section of the room or this entire room or this closet or this drawer or anything like that, that you are really focusing on decluttering that specific space. You can do this however you want. You just want to make sure that you are spending 20 minutes each week decluttering and getting rid of stuff. And at the end of the month, you are going to put it in your schedule to drop off your donation box or boxes or however much you have. You're going to do a full drop off at the end of each month. And this is what you are committing to help declutter your home so that you can rate your home, a 5 out of 5 next time. So, this is what you're really going through and you're doing because once we know what our personal priorities are in each of these areas, you can know what you are committing to, and then you can begin plugging that time in to dedicate into your weekly planning sessions because we can add these time blocks needed into our day stacks to ensure that we have prioritized this time. So if you are prioritizing time to uh, do that declutter session for 20 minutes, we need to make sure that that 20-minute session is plugged in somewhere within our week. And then we have it plugged in at the end of the month to do that drop off because taking the time to actually schedule it and make sure that we have these times blocked in our calendar are going to help us maintain that commitment and actually stay consistent with it so that we can make progress here. If you are doing something that is like your finances of setting aside that 10% of your income, but you're also building your base budget, you need to make sure that you have time set aside to first build your base budget. So set aside time to either meet with your spouse if you're married or to just work with yourself and go through your finances, build that base budget, and then move on and do your 10%. So then maybe it's just kind of a quick weekly check in to see where your progress is. And you could commit to that. That's a really easy thing to do. I mean, that would take you 5 minutes each week, but you need to put it somewhere so that you're not going to forget to do this, so that you don't just look at all of these priorities, create these goals, and then they never go anywhere. And the next time you do this, you're sitting in the same boat, or you feel even more overwhelmed or even more exhausted because you never prioritized this time initially. Well, what we really want to do is we want to go through this. We want to prioritize this time. We want to actually create the time to do it, get it into our schedule, and then we are going to feel more fulfilled and happy about where we're at the next time that we do this. And then we're going to have some tweaks to our goals, and we're going to be able to continue making progress to our bigger overarching goal. So this is where you can choose those personal priorities and create these simple plans to help you reach your goals, and you can repeat this as often as you need to. You could do it monthly if you want to check in on all these things. You could do it quarterly if that makes a little more sense. You could even do it, every 6 months or just once a year. Whatever feels good to you, just go ahead and go through these personal priorities to see where you're at. And if you look at a lot of these categories and you are rating them in a way where it's like, I'm really good with where I'm at in most of these categories, I'm happy with my rating at this point in my life, then you have the confidence to know you are spending the time that you are wanting already. And all you need to do is continue maintaining what you're doing. And that is going to feel good. And next time you do this, you might rate yourself differently, or you might have different goals or focuses in that category. So, how you rate your categories, it's not wrong. It's not saying like you have to focus your time here and you have to be hitting goals here. That is not the case. Your personal priorities are just that. They are personal, and nobody can tell you what your priorities are. So this is where it makes so much sense to be able to go through these yourself so that you can determine what is most important to you and then decide where you want to be spending your time. And when you plug these into your schedule, you might think that you have no time to do these things. But if you don't take the time to do them, you're going to feel like something is lacking. And you need to look at your schedule and make some cuts, make some adjustments, and you're going to have to pull from other areas of your life to squeeze some of these things in. And maybe that is cutting down on screen time. Screen time is something that so many of us exceed daily. Like there is a ton of hours out there going towards our screens, whether it is TV, phones, computers, anything like that. Anytime you have screen time, it is taking away from the time that you have. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have any screen time. I definitely do screen time because I'm on my laptop, I'm on my phone, but when I am being really intentional about where my time is going, I know that I have plenty of time to do the things that I need to do as long as I am intentional about cutting down on my screen time and knowing that I need to focus on my priorities first before I go to my screen time. And that has helped a ton. So if that is something that feels like you're just not going to have enough time, check your screen time on your phone. You can check it in your settings and see where you're at because you might surprise yourself. And maybe it's at like, 2 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours. Like it's not uncommon for a lot of people to have 6 to 8 hours of screen time a day on their phone, and you don't even realize it because it's just that consistent of a habit. So you can look at that and be like, okay, if I'm spending, 4 solid hours of screen time, I can be more intentional about where I'm plugging in what I'm doing throughout the day and cut down on that screen time. Even if I cut it in half, then I've got 2 hours back in my day. So it's crazy when you start thinking about this and being more intentional because it does make a big difference. And when you start focusing on what is important to you, you are going to feel so much better because you're going to feel like you are actually spending time on the things that matter most. So that's enough of me talking. I'm going to quickly recap this for you in case you didn't get it all or you want to just kind of review what you're doing. But the first thing that you need to do is you need to take your paper and you need to number it 1 through 8 and make sure you're giving enough space in between. And then, secondly, you are going to plug in a category for each of these numbers. So, number 1 is relationships, number 2 is spiritual life, number 3 is health and physical activity, number 4 is home, number 5 is finances. Number 6 is personal, and number 7 and 8 are yours to choose what categories you want. And then you're going to go to step 3, which is to go back through and then rate each of these categories on a scale of 1 to 5 on how you feel. 1 being, a low satisfaction rate and a 5 being highly satisfied. And then you're going to go to step 4, which is to go back again into each category and write down these three things. Number 1, write why you rated it the way you did and give yourself an explanation of why you felt that that rating was the rating you chose. And number 2 is to write down one thing you would like to do to either help improve or maintain this rating. And number 3 is to write down what you can commit to in order for your goal to be achievable, even if you're maintaining what you want to continue doing. And this could be, a daily commitment, a weekly, monthly, annually, it doesn't matter, but you just want to write down what you can commit to in order to reach this goal or to help get closer to your end goal because we ultimately want to have the end in mind, but we need to know how we are going to try to break it down to get there because choosing our personal priorities is all about knowing where we're heading and then creating those simple plans to help you reach your goals. So I hope you have fun with this. I hope you take time to really understand what is missing or what feels like it is lacking and take some steps to really improve these areas of your life because you are going to feel so much better. You're going to feel so much more fulfilled, and it's going to be less stressful, even on the busy days, because you know that you are spending time on the things that matter most to you.
Did you love that episode or learn something useful? If so, would you do me a huge favor? My goal is to grow this podcast and help as many women as I can break free from the overwhelm so they can truly enjoy their life. The best way for me to do this is for you to leave a 5-star written review on your podcast app and to share this episode with a friend or in your Instagram stories. I appreciate you being here. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care.